Hugo Chavez is an enemy of freedom who threatens the balance of power in our hemisphere.
Señor Bush y los imperialistas que los rodean y sus lacayos aquí.
Hugo Chavez is a threat. We must take him seriously, and we must act now.
I have the honor to welcome to the United Nations President of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, Mr. Hugo Chavez.
Chavez is a dictator and thus not a legitimate leader.
Well, he's a leader. He's a good leader, in fact, in the fact that he has such a following. Is he legitimate? No. He's abused his country's system, and he's setting himself up to be president for life.
Like it or not, he was elected. Since that election, he has moved dramatically away from any of the ideals of democracy.
Chavez is himself avowed to be a Marxist. He calls himself a Bolivarian, but he really is a traditional communist Marxist.
Nobody quite knows what it is, this Bolivarianism that he has invented that didn't really exist before, but that has resulted in his country going from one of the richest, most promising countries in the hemisphere to one where unemployment and poverty have both grown enormously.
According to the United Nations Human Development Index, Venezuela has experienced the largest and most rapid decline in quality of life and level of freedom of any nation on the planet.
My name is Andres Mendoza. I'm a 23-year-old journalist from Caracas, Venezuela. I recently graduated from college. 80% of our population is made out of very, very poor people. It's 80% of people who are thinking only of what they are going to eat tonight. They don't think what's going to happen to them tomorrow. They're just looking for someone that can ease the problems for today. And that's how Chavez is controlling us, controlling our population.
Chavez has carried out what you would call a traditional fascist model, economic model. Under a fascist model, the private sector is not destroyed. The private sector is controlled, it's channeled.
He began by modifying and approving a new constitution, but now he got a special law from Congress that permits him to legislate freely in more than 50 different subjects. He does whatever he wants now by law. Recently, the president has nationalized electric industry, telecommunication industry, oil industry. Now he's taking on the media.
Civil society's collapsing. Journalists are being intimidated.
When you're trying to establish a dictatorship, you have to destroy or intimidate the press so it cannot inform the people.
As soon as he announced his own television station, that says it all. This guy wants to control the press. They passed laws to crack down on the freedom of the press.
I started working at Radio Caracas Televisión about 8 months ago. When I first got the job, I thought it was the job of a lifetime. It has 53 years on the air, and it's the most popular. It's got the biggest audience. It's part of the Venezuelan culture. But he simply doesn't like the way we tell the news to the Venezuelan people. He doesn't like the way we report what's going on here, and he doesn't like the way we analyze his government and his policies. That's why he's shutting us down.
Thomas Jefferson said that if he had to choose between a government without a media or a media without a government, he would choose a media without a government, because it is that important to freedom.
We don't seem to have a press or media that fully understands the danger that Chavez poses today. We didn't recognize that Castro was the kind of threat he was until maybe the Cuban Missile Crisis came along. Chavez is the same way, and even worse. The public doesn't know this. The press is not letting the public know how big a threat Chavez is to us, to our national security, to this hemisphere.
Chavez has crafted a masterful political warfare campaign in America. This strategy includes contributions to major public figures, the showcasing of his relationships with high-profile celebrities, and his discounted oil programs run through the Chavez-controlled Citgo brand, a program championed by many of America's elite.
Remember, the Kennedys had this wonderful charity in Boston of providing cheap home heating oil to Massachusetts poor people. That was all Angolan oil that was being run through this Kennedy-controlled nonprofit in a similar way that Chavez is running his oil through Harlem and through other interests up in the northeastern United States.
I mean, there are a lot of Americans here in Congress. Some members of Congress have even invited Chavez to send oil to their congressional districts. And, you know, they have press conferences and they send out press releases that they've gotten discounted oil. What they don't tell their constituents is that that so-called discounted oil is coming from an axis of evil that is planning, along with Iran, along with Castro, along with the other terrorist states, to bring us to our knees.
He has Jack Kemp as one of his lobbyists. He's promised Jack Kemp a big stake in oil revenues, and Kemp has been shameless about promoting Chavez, going up to the Wall Street Journal to try to peddle Chavez's line up there, and the journal editors smacked him down. So this is not a liberal Democrat problem. This is a bipartisan problem of political corruption in Washington.
I think it should present a problem. It should bother people's sense of ethics, I think, to be taking oil from a terrorist collaborator. He's really a pathetic character, Chavez. He gives money to Castro and receives orders from Castro instead of giving Castro orders. So it's the ultimate pathetic colony. Castro has achieved what he always dreamt of in Venezuela, which is to have a colony in this hemisphere. And he's got a colony with a subnormal psychopath, Hugo Chavez, who is motivated by envy, resentment, has all sorts of complexes, hates the United States.
He was able to come to the UN. He gave a speech that was demeaning to